Hello, everybody. This is Gino Johnson, CEO of Champions for Veterans, and I am so excited to thank you so much and welcome you to listen to the Convos with Heroes podcast, where we talk to heroes who are just doing amazing things in the world. But before we get into today's interview, I want to, of course, say hey to my dad. Hey, Dad, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, son, I am great, man. We got a phenomenal American hero ready to rock and roll. I know Mike is ready to tell his story, so I can't wait to hear it.
Absolutely, I agree. Mike is really amazing. He's got a great bio here, and I'm looking forward to hearing this story as well. So to kind of get you guys an intro to who Mike is, I'll go ahead and read through his intro and his bio. Mike Schindler is a U.S. Navy veteran, an award-winning author, the national podcast host of The Military Wire, which features interviews with some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country, and executive producer of It's Vuca, The Secret to Living in the 21st Century documentary that features 15 of our nation's top experts on how to navigate chaotic times. He has been featured in USA Today, CBS Radio, Entrepreneur Radio, The Lars Larson Show, The Boston Globe, Q13 FOX, Yahoo Finance, and others. Mike is known throughout the U.S. as a subject matter expert on leadership development, government relations, and veteran transition issues. Mike is a guest writer for several national publications and the author of 2 books, U.S. Veterans in the Workforce, Why the 7% Are America's Greatest Asset, and Operation Military Family, which is endorsed by retired General Tommy Franks and retired General Peter Chiarelli. Mike, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Man, I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. And every time I hear that intro, my little bio, I'm like, did I really do all that stuff? I mean, that's just crazy. I guess if you live that long, you start looking back and you go, okay, I guess I've done a few things. So no, I'm excited to be with you guys. Totally.
Awesome. Pleasure, sir. Pleasure to have you for sure.
Well, yeah. We're going to jump into it, man. We're going to jump into it. We were having a good time before we started recording, Mike. And, I'm an old storyteller, brother. So you're living up in the great Northwest. I told you that was my first duty station, Fort Lewis, Washington, back in 1980, which is hard for me to believe. That was 42 years ago. I don't know if I look that old or that young anyway. But, man, give us your story, man. Tell us about your dad, military service, and growing up, and kind of bring us forward that way.
Yeah. So, I think all of us, when we're born, we try to figure out, why the heck am I here? Right. So I was that kid, growing up in Alaska, grew up on Perry Mason. So I thought I was going to be like, Perry Mason or Disney character. That was like, my dad was like, you can watch 3 TV shows, and it was either 60 Minutes, Perry Mason or Disney. So I didn't know which of the 3 I was going to be, but he was a civil engineer, grew up in Alaska, great childhood up there, just amazing experience. Had a pretty strong idea that I'd join the military because I wanted to give back. It was just kind of part of our culture growing up around the installations, the base. And in 87 though, here I was 17 years old and I was like every teenage boy at 17, high on testosterone, nothing. I knew everything, wasn't anything I couldn't do, but I was walking into this theater and I was like, man, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Right. I mean, how many of us know people, like we know people that are sitting at 40, they're still asking that question, but right. But at 17, I was like, man, I got to do something. I watched this movie and I knew exactly what I was going to do after I watched the movie. I mean, 100%. Like I walked out, I got on a payphone. That was back in the days of the payphone. And, my mom and dad are at the beach and I call my dad and I'm like, man, I know exactly what I'm going to do. He's like, what are you going to do? And I tell him, and I said, Dad, I got it, man. I'm going to be Tom Cruise. I'm going to fly cool jets and I'm going to date Kelly McGillis. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Top Gun came out, sold me on the Navy. I walk into the recruiter's office. My dad's like, whatever you do, don't sign any paperwork, right? So I go down to the recruiter's office. That guy's just, that chief is just sitting there in his dress press whites, looking amazing, right? I walk in and I kind of glance at the Marine Corps because I'm like, man, they got such, they got amazing uniforms, right? But, I'm like, nah, I'm Tom Cruise, baby. I walk into that and no lie, guys, no lie. I walk in, 17, I'm a teenage boy, right? I walk in, I look at that guy, and Ranger and Gino, I look him right in the eye and I'm like, you need to know, I am Tom Cruise and I will date Kelly McGillis and I will fly your cool jets. And that recruiter is like, come sit down here with a big smile on his face, right? And sure enough, sold me on the Navy. And that Saturday we went and played volleyball. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally sold. So if you guys remember the movie, they played volleyball and I'm thinking this whole movie is coming true. Right. And it was true for me until I got to boot camp. And then I'm like, that part wasn't in the movie. So yeah, but amazing experience in the Navy. Fast tracked out of the Navy, got into startups. You know, my wife and I met in college. You know, we've been together 28 years. And then, you know, just a series of events that have led me to where I am today, you know, running a major nonprofit, Operation Military Family that, you know, works on people's mission, purpose, identity after they get out. Like, who am I, you know, after I get out? Like, we don't know, right? We don't know, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And who am I? Once that, you know, rank is stripped, you know, a lot of guys struggle. So we said, no, we're going to focus on who you are. Why did God put you here? We're going to figure that piece out. And yeah, I got, you know, roped into the film industry by Chris Nolan. And, you know, that's how we made a film over COVID. You know, some people got fat and I made a film. So, you know,
let's go back to this piece, man, because it's so fascinating.
Before you move on to that, he said Christopher Nolan, who's probably my favorite director.
Well, there's two of them, Gino. So every time I throw the Chris Nolan name, like there's Batman, right? So Chris Nolan and Chris Nolan, they both live in Hollywood. They both know each other. The Sean Nolan that I work with, he works with Disney and Google and done a lot of different films, but he's not the Batman Dunkirk Chris Nolan that sometimes people confuse themselves with. But if you saw his stuff, you'd still love the guy. He's been in Hollywood 30 years. It's pretty amazing. You know?
I was thinking Inception is my favorite movie of all time. So,
well, it's one of Chris's favorite too, even though he didn't make that one. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I have no idea who he is, but thank you guys for telling me that. But look here, I do. Let's go back to as a veteran who, you know, kind of like you. I went in at 17, and I did 20. I retired at 37. But I'm going to go back to one of the points you made, Mike, because I really want you to emphasize this. I was that veteran who was a lifer. You know, I was going to do 20 years. And as I got closer to my 20 years, I was the guy that said, I don't know what's wrong with these guys. I'm going to get out and rock and roll, man. You know, can't wait to get out. Can't wait to retire. I'm ready to go, blah, blah, blah. Something strange happened to me, Mike. I had a big retirement ceremony at Fort Bragg. My mom came, my grandmother came, everybody in my family came from Texas to Fort Bragg to my graduation, and it was great. And I was standing up there with the commander, and I got my retirement award and, you know, the American flag, and I felt like a hero on retirement day. And but Monday came around, and I'll never forget waking up Monday morning for the first time, not knowing what to put on.
Yeah. Like
literally, not like, okay, not having really civilian clothes, had workout clothes and blue jeans, you know. I mean, and my wife said, okay, you got to go for a job interview. Oh, didn't think about that part.
Yeah.
And the level for 2 years, I literally fumbled around trying to figure out who I was without the uniform. Because my whole adult life, if you ask me who I was a Ranger, I was a Green Beret, I was a drill sergeant, Ranger Johnson. Now all of a sudden I'm a retiree with no responsibility.
Yeah.
Man, you got to talk about that piece. How did you work that? Because I want to hear that story.
Yeah. Very real, right? I mean, the military is so good at like assigning mission, purpose, identity, right? Like when I was in the Navy, I knew exactly like, okay, my purpose is to help save the world from bad people. Okay. Very clear, knew it every day. My job is to help save the world from bad people, right? My mission was whatever commander's intent is, right? And my identity was my rank, right? That's who I was, right? I mean, that was clear. Everybody knew it. You get out. And I was the same. I was like, man, I'm getting out and I am going to crush it. It's going to be amazing. High octane team coming from the Navy. This is going to be amazing. Awesome. I get out 14 jobs later, right? Seriously, no lie. 14 jobs later, my mom thought, oh my God, my son needs therapy, right? I mean, and I'm sitting there like speed dating through jobs because I'm like, well, that sounds good. And the thing about military is we can do anything, right? I mean, that's our mindset. It's like, there's nothing I can't do. So somebody would go, hey, could you do that? And you're like, yeah, I could totally do that. And then you get into it and you're like, oh my God, how long do I have to do this? And they're like, well, as long as you want. You're like, no, like I can quit. Yeah, you can totally quit. Okay, I'm out. I mean, so I got down to the point, no lie, Ranger, where I remember this clearly. I had $14 in my pocket, right? $14 in my pocket. And my buddy Buzz, who's one of the guys that changed my life, I was starting, our Operation Military Family because my buddy deployed to Afghanistan, and that's how I kind of wrote my first book. He was the officer in charge of all the medical facilities over there, and we ended up interviewing like 92 couples. And I had just transitioned out of this job working in startups, and I was still floundering. Like I was chasing money, I was doing things, probably drinking too much, doing all the stuff that you shouldn't be doing, right? And it had that hole in my soul, and the market fell flat in the real estate side because we had real estate software, and I was still like, man, who the heck am I? And I got $14 in my pocket, company folded, and my buddy Buzz is like, man, you got to meet this guy Jim. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go meet this guy Jim. And he's like, how much money you got? And I'm like, I got $14. So, right, like this was a trend, like 14 jobs, $14. Like I'm thinking, man, 14 is not my lucky number. So I got $14. Seriously, no, $14. And he goes, okay, great. I got $20. I'll pay for parking in Seattle. You cover lunch. And so we're driving down, and since you're familiar with the Seattle area, we're driving down I-5. We stop at Dick's next to University of Washington. And my buddy Buzz is like 6'2", 6'3", something like that, big guy. And he orders like everything on the menu. Right. Like, I mean, and I'm calculating in my head, like, oh my God. So I get up there and I'm like, man, I just want a dry burger, no bun. Like just right. And she goes, okay, great, $17. And I'm like, now, so I'm used to, at least having some level of authority and position, even in corporate, working my way through. And now I got to like tell this college student, like, you got to take back some cheeseburgers. And I'm like, I think you got to take something off. And she goes, I got you. And my buddy Buzz said something to change my life. He said, I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, you gotta give it back. And she goes, no, I got to cover it. We'll go ahead and cover it. Go ahead and take it. Right. And Buzz looks at me and goes, don't ever forget to give God thanks for your blessings. That's favor right there. And we get in the car, we get down there, and I meet this guy, Jim, and Jim changed my life as well. And we took our next company to a couple $1 million, and $14 to a couple $1 million was my original story. And it just transformed my life. But it took that $14 that I invested in burgers, right? A belief system, like I'm giving it all, right? And that is how I got in this whole area of mission, purpose, identity, is who am I? Like I had to really figure out, why am I here? Like, okay, now that the uniform's gone, like, who am I? We do not spend enough time doing that work. We spend a lot of time teaching people how to build resumes and all this other stuff. But the key is, can you seriously tell me, what does it mean to have your best year financially? Can you tell me what it means to have your best year spiritually? Can you tell me what it means to have your best year relationally? Can you tell me what it means to have your best year emotionally? If you can tell me those, circumstances can punch you in the face and you'll be like, that's okay, but I know where I need to go.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. You know what, Mike, it's just a great conversation, brother. You brought up something, and our stories are so just parallel, man. My wife would tell you, I didn't have 14 jobs, but I probably had 5 or 6, and I was pretty much the same way, right?
Yeah.
You start a little bit, oh, I'm out of here in 2 or 3 days, and you start something else. And we built our company, on one Bible verse, Proverbs 18:16, says, a man's gift maketh room for him to bring it to him before great men. And I had to figure out what it was I did, what I could do to bring value and service. and as motivational speaker and leadership training. That's what I've done now for over 20 years. So it's fascinating, man, that finally. So this is a question for you. So now you finally get to that company, you're going, and how was it, man, to go from $14 to $2 million? I mean,
oh, it's hard work.
What mindset shift did you have to do to get to that? Because that's, come on, man, $14 to $2 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of investment, a lot of, I mean, it was a lot of struggle, Ranger, getting there, right? I mean, it wasn't like it just fell in our lap. Like it was long nights, painful nights. There's pieces of the story that, when I had that $14, I was losing my big house, right? So we went through a foreclosure. We went through, we went through things that a lot of people are not willing to go through, right? And my wife is just resilient. Like, God bless her. Like, she's willing to, like, okay, I'm trusting you. And I'm like, well, I think I'm trusting God. And if that ain't God and that's Satan, man, I'm going to be mad. So, just moving forward, how do you do it? I guess something that spurred it, Ranger and Gino, was I remember when we were developing this software that later kind of became part of the foundation for My Health Vet. Okay. So that was kind of where it was a foundation for it. We were probably way ahead of our time. We were probably about 8 years ahead of our time before the VA really said, hey, we're going to automate all this stuff. And we were doing it in the 2013, 14 period of time. Okay. So they were still really like, man, no, people will never put anything online because, people will get it. And, I was on a radio interview and the host said, it sounds like you want to make money off the backs of veterans. That's what she said. And I said, well, that's interesting to me since I am one. And she said, well, how much money do you want to make? And I said, well, $100 million. Now, I had never even put a thought to how much money I wanted to make. But that's why I think it's important that people understand, what does it mean to have your best year financially, right? So I was spitballing it. Like, I think this was a Holy Spirit moment for me, because she's like, well, how much money do you want to make? And I'm like, $100 million. And she's like, $100 million. And I'm like, yeah, $100 million, $1 for every life I impact. And it just changed the whole interview. And it actually changed me, because my focus went off of money at that very moment into impact. And so it's suddenly I went, okay, money matters, but impact is vital. So how do I continue to make impact? If I just need to make $1 for every life I impact, then I know what my mission is, which is impact 100 million people.
Mike, I'm trying to sit here and be cool, man, but you're part of me and my son's conversation just about every day about what we do, in Champions for Veterans with helping vets. Because if you can help enough people, I was blessed and fortunate enough to speak for Zig Ziglar at the Zig Ziglar Corporation.
Wow, what a legend. Yeah.
Yeah, man, incredible day going to Zig Ziglar Corporation speaking. But I'll never forget, Zig would always say, if you help enough people get what they want, you don't have to worry about getting what you want.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've tapped into that service thing. And bro, look, I'm taking a little bit of time on this because I'm so fascinated with it. This is really part of it. I know we want to jump to something else, but I got to go back to this. As you learned about serving others during that interview,
yeah, what
are some of the changes that you do that maybe were small or big as you move your business and your mindset forward? Because I get it, man. Look, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I started in the Army. It was all about making money. I've sold everything: pills, potions, lotions, insurance. I'm the sales guy. I've done a lot of that stuff. So I get it. But it took a minute for my brain to move from selling to serving. Yeah. That took probably 2 decades for me. Talk about that shift for you.
Yeah. So it again became reflection, right? Okay. For me, introspection, which was like, I could sell anything to Ranger, like, Gino, I mean, that's why I had 14 jobs. People are like, hey, you're so good with people. And I'm like, yeah. And then I get into the product. I'm like, I got to do this forever. Like I wanted to be about transformation. Like, God put me on this planet for a reason. And I don't think it's to sell software. I don't think it's to, not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, we all have our calling, right? So for me, it became, how do I change somebody's life? Like truly change their life? Like, what can I do? I offer it, sometimes it's just a matter of a smile. But for me, it was, and getting back into the tribe of working with our military and veteran families was, honestly, these guys get out, they're well-skilled, they've got skills, ability, training, things that set them apart. They're part of the 7% club, right? By the time you get out, right? I mean, you've accomplished something that 93% of Americans have not, which is service to this country in uniform, families included, right? Because we all know that that's a chaotic environment. And yet they get out and then they struggle, right? We've known this. And yet, we come up with all these programs about how to improve your resume. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not where it sits, because that's why guys transition out of jobs. You got to get to the core. Like, why are you here? Like, what's your purpose? And so there is so much joy that I get when I sit down with somebody and go, okay, let's talk about, I'm going to give you, I'll never forget it. I don't want to give the guys that position away, but high profile, let's just say that, he commanded an installation and I'm sitting in his office and, he's maybe a couple stars, 3 stars. And I said, well, I'll tell you the one question that stumps everybody. And he goes, well, what's that one question? Now, this guy's seen combat. This guy's led men. He's like, he's no small potatoes. And I said, the one question is this: what does it mean to have your best year ever? Wow. Spiritually, financially, emotionally, mentally, relationally. What does it mean to have your best year? And he goes, I've never been asked that question. And I'm like, I know, because the military's always assigned your best year. I get it. You've never had the ability to think about what your best year is. The military has said, let me tell you, this is what your best year looks like. And you're like, all right, boy, this year may or may not, right? But how many people, I don't care if it's your churches, synagogues, Safeways, but you name it, right? And you ask your neighbor, what does it mean to have your best year? They'll look at you like that's a foreign question. Like, I don't know, I've never put any thought. But that's why 70% of people in jobs today are struggling. That's why your churches are filled with people that, man, Jesus, just take the wheel. I agree with that 100%, but Jesus always gave you the ability to go ahead and transform your sphere around you. Mm-hmm. But that starts with knowing who you are and why you're here, what your mission, purpose, and identity is. Figure that out, and the world opens its doors.
Mm-hmm. So, we always talk about, I say we, my son and I talk about, we don't even have a job doing what we do to help veterans.
Yeah, I love it.
It's so fulfilling to, man, we talk to people, like yourself and great Americans. Think about doing this every day, right?
Yeah.
In some capacity, whether it's a podcast or helping a guy get his VA benefits or, answering a question or talking to our team. And so this is what our life looks like now. And it's so fascinating to talk to you. So I want to ask you a question. When is the last time you had a job that you didn't like, and how does it look now doing what you're doing now?
I've been unemployable. I joke about that. Unemployable. What's it? 12 years.
Wow.
12 years. Where, and some years are amazing, and other years you're like, God, thank you for my daily bread. Right. But he's always provided, maybe not in the way, shape, or form that I wanted. Right. And I think sometimes we get lost in that too. Right. In that, well, here's my vision. And God goes, I appreciate your vision. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you what my vision is. And just come into alignment. Right. So it takes a discipline. I tell folks, like, if you want to go on your own, you feel compelled and moved to do it, then do it, and understand that just because you follow that vision, that passion in your soul, doesn't mean you're not going to have hardship, trials, circumstances that hit you in the face. You got to be ready for it. But when the vision is big, The circumstances don't matter, but you gotta believe that. And Ranger and Gino, I'd love to say that I am like happy-go-lucky guy around my house all the time. But if my wife was here, she'd be like, "Are you kidding?" There's moments that I have those doubtful moments, right? Where I'm like, oh man, maybe I should just go back into corporate and maybe things would work out. And then I talk to, I'm working with so many guys that are in corporate that they're like, oh my gosh, right? And I'm thinking, if I was in corporate, I couldn't do my Tuesday Holy Smokes crew with a bunch of the guys that sit around, the big campfire and, smoke cigars and drink wine and fellowship and talk about, the things they want to get off the chest. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to, drop something at a moment's notice and go sit with a guy at a coffee shop that may be struggling. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? So, wow. You have to know why you're here. Otherwise, if you don't, you will chase everything, right? The world has been so good at teaching us if then. If I just get this job, then I'll be happy. Right. If I just get that girl, I'll just be happy. If I just get that guy, then I'll be happy. And the if then it's a mistress that demands your whole entire life. You'll never be happy.
Wow. Let's talk about your leadership development, man, because I'm really excited to talk about that with you, Mike. And specifically, you talked about the 7%, and I want to get you to jump in there a little bit more. Yeah. But tell me, man, leadership development is something that I've been intrigued with my entire life. I can remember while in the military, of course, I've, in the Army, drill sergeant school, Ranger battalion. I was a Green Beret for 11 years. And our job was to train, folks overseas. So and then of course, retiring, I've had a chance to do a lot of speaking various corporations. And I love learning. So I'm writing while you're talking, I'm writing notes, brother. I mean, don't, you're talking, you see me looking down, I'm writing notes. Talk about leadership development and however you want to talk about it, from the basics to the big or whatever you want to say about it. Yeah. I just want to hear what you have about teaching leadership development.
Yeah, everything rises and falls on leadership, right? So I think we see that. Right. And it does, it truly does. We understand what a great leader is. We understand what a bad leader is. And I think the greatest form of leadership is servant leadership. In the military, one of the things I'll say about the military is so good in cultivating leaders, right? Now, not all are great leaders, okay, no question. But that's like any organization. Yeah. But leadership really has to do with, leading. There's a saying that, people say, well, I'm a leader. And I'm like, well, how many people are following me? Right? They're like, I got nobody following me. I'm like, well, you're not really a leader at that point, right? You're just kind of a leader of one. But leadership is all about helping other people achieve what it is they want. That's leadership, right? If you look at Jesus as a model, one of the best books I ever read, okay, was by Dr. Miles Monroe, okay, called The Principles and Power of Vision, right? Amazing book. It's actually what I built my programs off of. I've got it on my bookshelf. I read it every year. It is such a powerful, powerful book. Dr. Miles Monroe, he kind of, I elevated what he talked about. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, leadership is going into an individual or an organization. Leadership in family. What does that mean? Okay, now remember, I already kind of gave you the clue. Okay, was, what does it mean to have my best year? Personally and professionally. So when it comes into leadership, it's like, well, what's your goals for your people? Okay. What are your goals for you personally? Okay. What are your goals? Morale and profits. Companies hinge on morale and profits. Two things. People ask me all the time, Mike, what is the secret to helping companies? I said two things. They only care about two things: morale and profits. I've never been proven wrong on this. Now, people will want to debate some of the other aspects of what's really important inside of a company, but I will tell you that everything hinges on morale and profits. You want to increase your profits, improve your morale. Okay. Get your team to own it. There's a great story, 1961, 62, I think it was, JFK is going through visiting NASA. And he kind of takes he kind of peels off from the entourage, and he sees a guy over there mopping the floors, right? And he goes over there and he asks this guy, he says, what's your job here at NASA? And he looks at him and he says, Mr. President, my job here is to help put a man on the moon. That's leadership, right? Somebody inside of NASA said, I don't care your task. Okay. Your job, your mission is to help put a man on the moon. And you happen to be doing that by sweeping the floors and mopping the floors, right? So he wasn't a janitor. So that's leadership, is getting people to buy into the vision. Mm-hmm. But you have to know individually, personally, professionally, what the vision is. Most companies don't. Most employees don't. Okay. Leadership is helping people identify, how are you helping change the world? And I don't care if that's in your family life or in your professional life, but that's leadership. And our goal is to always help people understand how they are impacting, influencing in a positive way, changing the world.
No, that's phenomenal. I mean, my son and I had a 2-hour conversation this morning about some of the same stuff. So I'm loving the class and I'm writing notes all the way. Talk about this 7% club. You talk about the military being 7%. Give us a little bit more information about that and how you convey that message, maybe to corporations to hire vets or deal with vets, or however you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so the 7% club was something that I realized, there's fewer than 1% of Americans that serve in the military on active duty, right? The number is like, it could even be closer to 0.5% now. I mean, it's low, right? The amount of individuals that are on active duty. So you think about that, you've got these men and women who are serving on the front lines to ensure our safety, our way of life, et cetera, right? Less than 1% that are on active duty. That's their call, right? Then you graduate people out existing today, still alive today, a little less than 7%, okay, but a 7% who have worn the uniform. Oftentimes, we get so caught up in the stigmas and the media message that people talk about veterans, right? It's only a good story if it's bad news. And we hear about veterans and PTS, veterans and TBI, veterans and, jobs, and veterans, substance abuse and right? All this stuff. But what we fail to realize as veterans, even sometimes, is that's not our story. Mm-hmm. Our story is we've accomplished something that 93% of Americans chose not to. We joined something and said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and give away my constitutional rights, and I'm going to go ahead and surrender myself under the UCMJ, and I'm going to go ahead and do things that you're not willing to do, and I'm going to learn skills, trades, abilities, a way of thinking, a mindset, okay, that it makes me incredibly invaluable. And I don't care if you're an E4 that gets out, the government invested no less than $50,000 into you, probably a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if you retire out, you're $1 million, couple $1 million plus. Ranger, you've probably like a $5 million, $6 million man. You're like the bionic man, right? So when corporations realize this, they go, wait a second. Yeah, but maybe he's rigid thinking. Are you kidding? Like, these are the things I have, with these corporate execs and HR people, like, what? We love our military guys, but, they're kind of rigid in their thinking. I'm like, no. That's your perspective. That's probably your perception. But let me tell you how it works. Like, it was like, here's your mission. Get it done. Guess what that meant? I had a lot of flexibility, right? Fixed on the mission, flexible on the method.
Yeah.
Fixed on the mission, flexible on the method. So when I go into organizations and companies and like, well, talk to us about our military guys, I'm like, these are guys that figure it out. These guys are your problem solvers. Number one problem solver, right? A friend of mine, Tim, he now owns Bone Frog Cellars and Bone Frog Coffee. Amazing company. Their company gives back to the families of fallen SEALs. Great company. Premium wine, premium coffee. It's wonderful. But I remember when he first got out and Tim and I sat down, he goes, Mike, here's my problem. 25 years with teams. Every time I put that on my resume, people are like, oh, great, you're really good at killing people. Or how can you help us do what it is we want? And I said, well, Tim, you're brilliant. The nation understood that you were the guy to drop into the middle of a very difficult situation and you'd figure out and help solve it. And he's like, you're right. And I'm like, you just take that skill, that training, that ability, that thinking into the corporate sector. That's your battlefield. Figure it out. Just say, give me the problem. I'll figure it out. I can solve it. right?
Yeah. Oh,
but
absolutely.
we have to realize that as veterans, right? And we also have to realize that, you're not going to start out making six figures. You might, but understand that, if I'm going to go back in the military today, they'd be like, hey, Mike, I understand that you've done a number of different things, and we'd like to offer you the role of, a Navy captain, because we think, you could be a captain. And you laugh, right? Gino, you laugh, and you'd be like, yeah, it never happened, right? No. And we get guys that come out and they're like, but I should be X. And I'm like, but you got to remember, you got to do your boot camp and course. You got to be willing to start, you don't have to start at the bottom, but you got to be willing to, you got to earn your stripes.
Yes. And it's very, very different. My wife used to tell me all the time, when I first got out of the military, baby, this is not the Army. And I'd be like, I wouldn't listen. Hey, man, I'm a Green Beret. I'm a Ranger, They make movies about the stuff that I did. That's Rambo. Right. I'm the real thing, right? I'm the real guy, right?
That's right.
And boy, did I learn. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
It had to adapt to the civilian world, be able to communicate in that fashion. And, it took me a while, but the great thing is, we built something, we learned. I'm gonna let my son jump in with a question here, because I can see him chomping at the bit, and he's writing some notes. You got anything, son?
Man, I'm just really enjoying this conversation. I feel like if I start adding too much, I'll take away from what Mike has to share. So I'm just listening.
I got you. So Mike, let's get to this, man. I got a couple more questions for you. And man, I say a couple more. I'm probably lying. I got about 10 or 15, but
that's great. We'll speed through the questions. Yeah.
Hey, this never ends with me, man. I love leadership.
Yeah.
Give us an example, man, of another success, because all leaders, you talked about this. If no one's following you, you're probably not a leader.
Yeah.
So you don't have to give the name, but give us an example of a team or some people that you helped and where they were before you started teaching them and leading them, and what they ended up, somebody other than yourself. So if you'd like to share that, man, we want to listen to that.
Yeah. So we actually looked at that. So when we started the nonprofit 10 years ago, it's our 10th year this year. When we started the nonprofit, we looked at the number, and we're just shy of helping personally serve 10,000 individuals, right? Yeah. So 1,000, it averaged almost 1,000 a year. That was the average. Certainly the first couple of years were not 1,000 people a year.
Right.
So it kind of built up to that. But I would tell you, it's the individual stories. It's the ones that, when they're transitioning out, whether it's through Hire Our Heroes or whether it's through, an organization, which, if you visit the website, Operation Military Family, you can see some of the, organizations that we've helped. But it's the individuals that come to me that I'll run across maybe 5 years later or 3 years later. They go, Mike, you don't understand, but you changed my life. Wow. And I'd be like, wow, well, walk me through how we did that. And he goes, well, you said this and you did this and you helped me understand this. And Gino and Ranger really comes down to helping guys just understand who they are, right? Like if you want me to send you a resume, like you'll look at my resume and go, that sucks, because I'm not a resume guy. I'm about how you're going to help. I'm like, you need to go into it. I'll give you my secret. Okay. We do something called the rule of 5. Okay. Now the rule of 5 is a very powerful tool. I actually have trained my daughters in how to use it in the dating scenario too. Okay. But the rule of 5 was something that I got from Jim, the guy Jim, that helped change my life. He sat down. We were in this coffee shop in Bellevue, and he said, Mike, this business plan, what we want to do with this company, et cetera. This is amazing. I think this would be pretty good. So, and I'm a little nervous because I'm thinking I got to pitch him, right? I got to raise this money. And he's like, so let me tell you, let me give you 5 reasons why I think we should do business together. Now, remember, I'm the guy wanting the money. And the guy who has all the money is looking at me saying, let me give you 5 reasons why I think we should do business together. And that Ranger and Gino, somebody that has the money is looking at you saying, let me give you 5 reasons why you think we should do business together. What would you do?
You don't need 5, you just need 1.
Right? Right? So I'm like, are you kidding? So he gives me the 5 and I'm like, he's like, so what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, yes. And he's like, well, wait a second. let me give you 5 reasons why you might not want to do business with me. And I will tell you that that's how I also built the leadership program around this, because that rule of 5 is what guys and gals remember. Is I teach how to incorporate the rule of 5 into your own life. So what does that mean if you're looking at a job? Well, where are the 5 areas that you're going to add value? Right? Where are the 5 areas you're going to add value? Now you have to prove it. It can't just be, I'm a great communicator and I'm good with people. And yeah, so is everybody else. You got to prove where you're going to actually add value. Like you got to have proof, like a lawyer, like prove it to me. Right? But then what I want you to do is I want you to evaluate 5 reasons why you should run like hell from that job. Why is it? 80% travel, won't be home with a family. What are the things that are going to be detractors? Right? Now, if you can flip those bottom 5 into negotiation points and those help you move the needle on your best year, see what I just did? You need to know what your best year is. But if you move that needle on your best year, okay, then that might be the best fit job for you. So how do you use it in the dating world? Right? Well, I told my daughter, I said, when you sit down with a guy and he says, hey, yeah, I think we should date. You go, great. Tell me the 5 reasons why you think we should date. Right? Hear him out. And then say, well, tell me the 5 reasons why I might not want to date you. I want you to get that guy to really think introspective. Right? Like, don't be enamored by, good looks and great charm. Because, man, I tell you what, we all see the headlines on those guys. So, yeah. Right? But we can do that in our relationships. We can do that in our business world. And the rule of 5 is really what's helped transform people's lives. So if they remember, discovering your post-service identity, mission, purpose, identity, that's our core. But people will typically say the rule of 5 to help change my life.
So, man, you're giving so much information. I know you've written a couple of books. You have a company. Take some time now, and at the end, we'll let you do it again. But I want you to give your website or where people can buy your books and give that kind of detail now. And I know my son will put it in the chat or put it somewhere on the video. He does all that kind of stuff. I'm just an old vet talking. But give us those details, man.
Yeah. So most everything that you can find that I've done is on Operation Military Family. So OpMilFam or OperationMilitaryFamily.com or .org, either one. It's a nonprofit. But we know that people always put .com, so we have that too. You can find the books there. The exciting project that I'm super excited about is the documentary that we just released in March called It's Vuca, The Secret to Living in the 21st Century. I think you guys can see that there. That was our pet project that I teamed up with Chris Nolan out of Hollywood. We were working on a different documentary, and the changing times, uncertainty, the chaos. So Vuca, for your listeners, they can find out anything they want to know about Vuca at itsvuca.com, V-U-C-A. Vuca stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And how many of us have faced that the last couple of years, right? Everything flipped upside down. I think it was one of the first times I told my wife, I said, what's interesting to me is the whole world is now experiencing what it means to be a veteran family. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, everybody's complaining about missing birthdays and not seeing family members and schedules being upside down and everything else. I said, the whole world just went through what veterans go through every day.
Right.
Right. I said, that's Vuca. But the flip side to Vuca is vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. And it came out of the Army War College in '87 when the Soviet Union started to collapse. And so we put this whole documentary together, features General Casey, General Boykin, Major General Bob Dees, my friend Mark Devine, Rich Divney from SEAL Team 6, Stephen Kotler, Michael Hyatt. I mean, it's got like 17 of America's thought leaders in it. We shot it during COVID. And it all started with Chris Nolan giving me a challenge. He said, okay, we got to do it on Vuca. And I didn't remember what that was. And so I'm like, well, I don't even know what it is. And he's like, you're the military guy, you should know. And so I, ended up doing this fast track education over the last 18 months, understanding that I teach a lot of the flip side, the positive side of Vuca. But General Casey teaches it at Cornell as a master's class, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity side. And he goes, well, just call Casey up. Now, for those of your viewers that don't know who General Casey is, he was a 36th Chief of Staff of the Army, kind of transformed the Army. I met him back in 2010, I think it was 10 or 11, might have been 12, when he was Chief of Staff of the Army. And I remember going into the Pentagon and General Chiarelli was his vice chief. And I remember meeting him the first time then. Well, so here it is 10 years later, right? Approximately 10 years later. And Chris is like, well, just pick up the phone and call him. And I'm like, who calls the 36th Chief of Staff of the Army? Like, who does that?
Right.
I'm like, Chris, you're the Hollywood guy. You do it. You got 3 Emmys. You do it. He'll be, he's like, no, you're the military guy. So I did. I picked up the phone. And he phoned me back and we did a Zoom. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in his living room in Boston and interviewing him with the crew for 5 hours, getting amazing footage. And that's what kicked off the film that's now on Amazon and Apple and everything else. And the whole goal of that film is to help people understand that there is so much opportunity in the next decade. If you can get your mind right, there is so much opportunity, but you got to learn to adapt and you got to be flexible. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's fascinating because, as a Green Beret going through the Special Forces qualification course, and it's kind of like any of the special op courses out there. They put you through so much craziness, right?
That's right.
And part of it is, they don't tell you what you're going to do.
Yeah.
They may give you a bunch of rope, tie this, and you got to move this so many miles. And they say, any questions? And then if you ask questions, they read instructions again and say, go. I mean, it's
yeah,
but it's adaptability. And I'll never forget, you remind me of one of my instructors. He had a deep voice and he was from one of the Caribbean islands, and he stood up and said, and a SF trooper is always thinking. A special forces trooper is always thinking. You cannot be dumb to be a Green Beret. And it was like, no one's going to tell you when we drop you off in a foreign country, put your left foot here, put your right foot there. That's right. Why we recruit smart people and take you through this training, because you're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. Creative thinking, being able to think on your feet. How much of this, man, because you talked about, not being a resume guy. And I love that, because a lot of times, people get bogged down in just the craziness of this world and having the best resume and typing up. What part of your leadership program do you just teach people, man, how to think outside the box and just create and be creative and be willing to take on the challenge of figuring things out without instructions?
One of our core is being quick to listen, slow to speak. Right. In corporate, we always want to be, we want to be the guy that speaks first. And my dad said, and it was funny because my dad was brilliant at this. My dad said, let me tell you how you get the girl. Okay. That's where I got this from. He goes, if you want to have a really good date, let her do all the talking. Right. Because she'll think it's an amazing date. And I thought, oh, that's actually really good advice. Right. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. Now there's, that's rooted somewhere else for those who know, right? Be quick to listen, slow to speak. But the whole point of, or OODA loop, I don't care, take OODA loop, okay? Observe, orient, decide, act, right? OODA loop is all about this too, right? That's the Air Force training, right? Colonel Boyd, right? So what do you need to do is when you go into a situation, I don't care if it's personal, professional, etc. I am typically the last guy to speak. Why am I the last guy to speak? Because I want to hear what everybody else's thoughts are, because everybody else thinks they're a problem solver, right? So my job is to lead, okay? As a leader, I might not have all the answers. My job is to understand how to navigate the team, okay? And everybody has a skill set on that team. That's why they're there. If they're there and don't bring a skill set, then they shouldn't be there, right? They're in the wrong fit. So the whole key is be quick to listen, slow to speak, or OODA, right? People ask me this all the time. When I go into a new setting, Mike, I don't really know how to fit in. I go, just deploy the OODA loop, man. Just go in and observe. You're in a foreign country. You're in a new company. Okay, observe. Who are the players? Who are the ones? Who are the friendlies? Who are the enemies, right? Figure this out, okay? Orient yourself. Figure out what your strength is there, right? Start to make decisions off of the things that you've observed. Okay. And then begin to act on those. And your whole goal is to help the company achieve its mission, its vision. Okay. So quick to listen, slow to speak. That's your secret in life. Stop being the first guy to talk. Right.
And you just brought up something. Don't think you got to have all the answers.
Yeah, I won't.
Yeah.
Last I checked, I don't have JC as my initials. So
right. Come on.
Right?
Come on. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, Mike, because my son and I got into a conversation this morning about, I always use leadership. I talk about my time being on a team in special forces. And I said, man, you talk about intimidating, you graduate the course, you walk on the team, the Green Beret, and you got all this stuff going on. And it's amazing because you bring up a lot of that, man. Look, I'm going to start slowing down and let my son get to some of the final questions because I don't know if you got a hard stop at the top of the hour.
I don't. I could go a little longer if you guys want. It's all good.
Okay.
But I don't know what your audience can tolerate. I don't know if they're,
Yeah, we probably will go about 15 more minutes. I got to get this question and get this kind of. You got me going, Mike. I mean, you got me going, brother, on this stuff, and I want to get your take on this.
Yeah.
We talk about leadership, and I talk about one of the most intimidating parts of my life. You graduate the Special Forces qualification course, you get on a Special Forces A team. On an A team, you got all these quote experts. You got a medic, you got an engineer, you got a commo guy, you got a weapons guy. I was a weapons guy, and all these guys are going through so much training to be that. The medic is pretty much one of the smartest guys I've ever met on a Special Forces A team. This guy's went through 2 years of real live stuff, keeping things alive, and he's the real deal, period. No doubt about it. And all these guys. But what I learned was how you get people to work together and listen to them, okay, take suggestions, and kind of as a leader come up with that. Talk about, man, just running a team of any kind of team, because if we're in leadership, we're going to be over a team. So one would be, how do you make those members feel like you respect them? How do you make them feel like they're a part of it, but still as a leader being able to make the final decision? Go through that process.
Yeah. So it's great. So it starts with the one team, one fight mentality. Okay. So that's really where it starts, right? So if you look at a military principle, or if you look at a military saying, right, one team, one fight. So that means we all have to be moving towards the same vision or mission, right? So why are you here on this team? Because you bring something that's going to help accomplish that mission, right? Now, if you remember the story I told about the janitor, right? Remember? Sweeping floors, mopping floors, right? When the president asked him, what's your job? What did he say? It wasn't, Mr. President, my job is to sweep floors and mop the floors. What did he say? My job's to help put a man on the moon. Right. That's leadership. Okay. So when I'm working with teams, everybody's got their skill set. They need to understand what their job is. Their job is X, to help put a man on the moon.
Right.
That's their job. Right. So how is it that what I'm doing right now, how does it help me put a man on the moon? Listen, it's important that everything's clean. It's important that everything is efficient. It's important that everything's in order. That's you. By you doing that, it helps us accomplish this. That's the leader's job, is to add value to people's lives. That's the job of a leader, is to help them not only add value to people's lives, but understand their value to the mission. Okay. Oh, I'm just a mess cook. Are you kidding? You're just a mess cook? Dude, you put fuel in our war machines. Without you, that doesn't work. Right? So people have to understand that, I mean, God said, he goes, the hand isn't more important than the foot, right? It's the body. And we lose sight of that so often. We're like, well, the eyes are the most important. Well, are they? I mean, they play a good role, right?
Wow.
But that's the piece that people have to understand. And as a leader, my job is to help you understand your value to the mission and the purpose. That's why I have to be slow to speak.
Man, I love this. I got to get to one of these questions I always love to ask a leader like yourself. Mike, no one makes it to the top of the mountain by themselves, right?
Yeah.
If you were to ask me a question about who are some of the leaders I had, and I could pop them off by name and tell you, this guy changed my life because of this person changed my life because of that. If you don't mind, brother, talk about a couple of leaders, or how many you want to talk about, that you can look back at your life now and say, you know what, and you already mentioned a couple of them, but there may be some more that you want to mention. Talk about how they changed your life specifically.
Yeah. So my best friend Brian, who retired out as a colonel in the Army, he changed my life simply because I really didn't understand what it meant to have a long-term friendship. You know, growing up in the military, you're in that military environment, moving a lot, right? You know, you kind of move around and you get really good at meeting people, but you never go deep, right? And so he was the first person I really went deep with and understand what it really means to have deep relationship. Okay, changed my life. My friend Jim Canfield believed in me, believed in my business. He was the one that taught me the rule of 5, absolutely changed my life, right? Buzz Leonard, he changed it by just saying, never forget to count your blessings, right? Okay, that changed my life. I mean, these are just small things, but these are micro wins. And if I think all of us look back in our life, we go, what are the micro wins in my life? Right? We're always looking at the problems, but what are the micro wins on a daily basis? We can say, you know what? I'm really grateful for this. Right? I'm really grateful for this. Chris Nolan changed my life, you know, getting me into the film industry. Like people go to school for this stuff and he dragged me in it. And, you know, here I am. And it's, you know, this is a film that I believe will change 100 million people. I believe it'll give them the ability to think outside the box, which you talked about earlier, Ranger, which is, how do you get people to think outside the box? I get them to believe in themselves. So you got to believe that you're here for a reason. Like God put you on the planet. You woke up today and you're not done. Mission's not done yet. Okay. So believe in you.
I'm trying to calm down, brother. I'm sorry. You got me worked up, brother. I'm sitting here trying to be professional, and you hit me with haymakers, brother. This is just fascinating, man. But we're at that point. I'm gonna have to let my son ask, because I can tell right now, you know, it's funny, you know, it's our first time meeting each other.
Yeah.
But you know, you meet guys, you say, man, I could talk to that dude for 5 hours and it wouldn't get bored, right? This is just fascinating.
Oh, we'd have a good time.
Yeah,
like you've already, like I went to Louisiana. I thought I'll never come back here because the ocean is going to sweep over this state like tomorrow, right? There ain't no boundaries between the ocean and Louisiana. I mean, it's like the ocean sneezes and that place is gone. But like I'd fly down to Louisiana. I'd fly into Georgia again just to spend time, because it's relationship. That's how we change the world, is one person at a time.
Being more relational, huh, Mike? And you're hitting so much, man, about the relationships you built over lifetime and over the years, and the connections with people. And you know, it's amazing you're saying that. One of the guys that I used to listen to in motivational speaking, he used to say, the more relational you are to more people, the more people you can affect.
Yeah.
Right. The more relational. All right, son, come on up. I gotta stop. I'm stopping myself. You know, I'm an old preacher, so it's like Mike, when the pastor on Sunday says, my final point, what does that mean? Nothing. So I'm gonna put my thing on mute so I can just stop talking.
Mike, mission, purpose, identity.
Yes, sir.
That's, you know, it's amazing to really just hear what you shared. And I've heard that so many times, just when it comes to veterans being so used to having that mission. I think it's one of those things that a civilian, you know, I personally didn't serve, but, you know, growing up with my dad, he actually has a few books, and one of them, Find Your Passion. And, you know, hearing that all my life, it was one of those things that, hey, you know, you gotta have a passion. You gotta have something you're going after and something that you're about. And it's something that most people don't realize the importance of. So what you're doing with Operation Military Families is huge. You're changing lives in your book. And I know it's really great. Please tell everybody again where they can find you, what your books are. We love to make sure we share that again.
Yeah, I mean, you just put in Operation Military Family in Google and you can find me. You'll probably find my LinkedIn profile, everything at Operation Military Family, the books, you know, you can find that on Amazon, etc. I mean, all that stuff is there. I encourage people to reach out, Gino, like, you know, if you want to be friends, let's be friends. Like I'm cool with it. If you want to have a conversation, let's do it. I'm here to help change the world like everybody else is.
Wow.
Right? In some way, shape, or form. So yeah, it's, you know, reach out.
It's not like you already answered the question that I had for you, our last question. And, talking about mission and purpose and identity. I mean, I know you probably have you probably have the answer to this question just in your head always. You know the exact answer to it. But, the question we always ask at the end of our interviews is, when your life is over, what do you want to be remembered for?
Well, helping people understand their purpose.
Wow.
That's it. It's not the amount of money I make. It's not, it's really, and we should do this earlier, right? We should all have like eulogy parties before we die, right? So that people understand our impact, because I don't think enough people when you're in the service industry, sometimes it's really hard because you don't know the lives you're impacting. I remember Buzz sat me down at the fire pit, this was 2 weeks ago, and he goes, I think sometimes you forget the amount of lives that you impact.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess I do. I don't even think about it, right? It's not like I'm tallying, I don't know, right? So what type of legacy do you want to live? Right? So if I can help people understand their purpose, like, why am I here? And it could be, you're just here to be the best mom ever. You're just here to be the best dad, the best spouse, the best, stop thinking that you got to be the 6 or 7 figure paid CEO.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's like, no, my job is to make sure that I grow young adults into being amazing human beings so that they can stand on the shoulders of giants. That's my job.
Wow.
It's my wife's job. She loves it. She's brilliant at it. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mike. Man, you guys Google Operation Military Families, check out Mike, his books, and man, find your why, find your passion, find out what your purpose here is, and get after it. So thanks so much, Mike. Man, it's been an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to really hear you and really do this interview with you.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you both, Roger, Gino. Thank you. Honored to be on your show.
Thank you, sir. With that, I'll go ahead and pass over to my dad to close it out.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm so fired today, man. I mean, if you could see the smoke coming out my ears and top of my head, man, Mike has put me on fire. I had a country preacher say, you don't get on fire, you get on fire. One word, on fire. Right?
On fire.
One word, on fire, right? So look, I'm gonna finish this out like I always do, telling everybody that watches Convos with Heroes to stay in the fight.